Life often feels like a balancing act on a tightrope with countless expectations pulling us in every direction. Society has a way of demanding that we conform to certain roles, perform in specific ways, and strive for achievements that often don't align with our true desires. Family adds another layer, with expectations to uphold traditions, meet benchmarks, or make sacrifices that sometimes drain our spirit. And then there are the expectations we impose on ourselves, the relentless pressure to excel, to be perfect, to always move forward, even when our hearts yearn for stillness. These expectations can weigh heavily on our minds, creating a sense of constant surveillance, as though the world is watching our every move. We begin to live not for ourselves, but for the validation of others, navigating a path dictated by external approval. In this state, our happiness becomes conditional, tied to how well we fulfill these demands. The endless cycle of pleasing others leaves little room for us to simply be, to exist without judgment or scrutiny. Over time, the pressure builds, and the sheer weight of it can feel suffocating. In such moments, the idea of disappearing, of stepping away from it all, can feel like a lifeline. This disappearance doesn't have to be physical, it's a mental and emotional retreat from the expectations that bind us. It's the deliberate choice to let go of the roles we've been assigned and to pause the constant performance we've been putting on for the world. This act of retreat, of disappearing in a metaphorical sense, allows us to shed the layers of expectation that have obscured our true selves. When you take this step, something remarkable happens. You begin to breathe freely again. The pressure lifts, and in its place comes a profound sense of relief. In the absence of constant demands, you find the space to listen to your own thoughts, to feel your own emotions without the interference of others' opinions. There's a happiness in this freedom, a kind of joy that stems not from adding anything new to your life, but from simply subtracting what no longer serves you. This retreat is not about abandoning your responsibilities or cutting ties with loved ones. It's about recalibrating, creating a boundary that allows you to reclaim your inner peace. It's about recognizing that you cannot pour from an empty cup. And sometimes the best way to fill that cup is to step back and let the world move on without you for a while. The weight of expectations may never fully disappear, but learning to release them, even momentarily, can change how you experience life. It reminds you that your worth isn't defined by how well you meet others' standards, but by your ability to stay true to yourself. This process is liberating and ultimately deeply fulfilling. When you return from this retreat, you'll find that you're not only stronger, but also more connected to the things that truly matter. In a world filled with constant noise and ceaseless activity, we often lose sight of the person we truly are. The demands of everyday life, coupled with the expectations placed upon us by society, family, and even ourselves, can create a disconnect from our core identity. We spend so much time trying to be what others need us to be that we forget to ask the simplest question, who am I, when all of this fades away? This is where the power of disappearing, of stepping away from the chaos, becomes transformative. It allows us to reconnect with ourselves, rediscovering parts of us that may have been buried under the weight of responsibilities and expectations. When you take a step back and retreat into solitude, something profound happens. In the absence of external distractions, you are left alone with your thoughts, your emotions, and your essence. It might feel uncomfortable at first, as though you are meeting a stranger. But in reality, you are reconnecting with someone who has always been there, waiting patiently to be acknowledged. This rediscovery is not about uncovering some grand, hidden secret. It's about peeling back the layers that life has imposed on you, layer by layer, until you find the authentic self beneath it all. As you sit in silence, you begin to hear the whispers of your own desires and dreams, the ones you might have set aside in the pursuit of meeting others' expectations. You start to notice what truly brings you joy and what merely drains your energy. The clarity that emerges in this process is both humbling and empowering. It's as though you've been carrying around a blurry mirror, and now, for the first time in years, you can see your reflection clearly. This journey inward also reveals the values and principles that matter most to you. Away from the influence of societal norms and external validation, you have the space to evaluate what you genuinely believe in. You may find that some of the goals you've been chasing are not even your own, they were handed to you by others, and you accepted them without question. This realization is liberating because it gives you the freedom to let go of what doesn't serve you and focus on what does. Rediscovering yourself in this way is not about isolating yourself from the world forever. It's about creating a stronger foundation within yourself so that when you return to the world, you do so with a clearer sense of who you are and what you want. You are no longer living reactively, merely responding to the demands around you. Instead, you are living intentionally, making choices that align with your authentic self. This reconnection with yourself is one of the greatest gifts you can give to yourself and ultimately to others. When you are grounded in who you are, you show up as your best self in every aspect of your life. It's a quiet strength, one that radiates outward and touches everything you do. Rediscovering yourself in solitude is not a luxury, it's a necessity for a life well lived. In the stillness of disappearing, there's a surprising truth that emerges as you begin to recognize the people and circumstances that truly matter. When you step away from the constant social engagements, endless notifications, and daily pressures, you create a distance that sharpens your perspective. It's not until you remove yourself from the equation that you start to see who reaches out, who notices your absence, and who genuinely cares. Disappearing, in this sense, becomes a filter that separates meaningful connections from superficial ones. Often we stay entangled in relationships and situations out of habit, guilt, or convenience. We tolerate one-sided friendships, unfulfilling commitments, or draining interactions because we fear what might happen if we let go. But when you remove yourself, even temporarily, you create space for clarity. You begin to notice who respects your boundaries, who checks in not because they need something, but because they value you, and who vanishes the moment you stop giving them your energy. This isn't about judging others harshly, it's about understanding the dynamics that shape your life and learning where to invest your time and heart. Disappearing also reveals the toxic patterns you may have unconsciously been a part of. When you're constantly present, it's easy to overlook how certain people or environments affect you. But in the quiet absence, you can reflect on what feels heavy and what feels light. You start to identify the interactions that left you drained, the situations that made you second-guess yourself, and the commitments that pulled you away from your authentic self. This awareness is powerful because it gives you the choice to release what no longer aligns with your growth. As you begin to see things more clearly, you also start to appreciate the relationships and moments that truly enrich your life. Sometimes, disappearing reveals the people who might not have been in the spotlight of your attention, but have been quietly supportive all along. These are the connections worth nurturing, the ones that don't demand your constant presence, but remain steady and genuine. Disappearing reminds you to value quality over quantity, to cherish depth over surface-level interactions. And this process of understanding who and what matters isn't about cutting ties or isolating yourself permanently. It's about recalibrating your focus and energy. When you return from this period of withdrawal, you do so with a stronger sense of who deserves a place in your life and who doesn't. You approach relationships with greater intention and clarity, setting boundaries that honor your well-being while still allowing for meaningful connections. And in the end, disappearing teaches you that your worth isn't tied to how many people you please or how often you're available. It's about being present in ways that are authentic and fulfilling, not just for others, but for yourself. By stepping away, you gain the insight to cultivate a life filled with genuine connections and experiences rooted in respect and mutual growth. When you disappear, something magical happens. You start to reconnect with yourself. In a world that constantly demands your attention, where the noise of others' opinions and expectations can drown out your own thoughts, stepping away offers a rare opportunity for introspection. It's not about running from responsibilities or cutting ties with everyone. It's about carving out a sacred space where your inner voice can be heard again. During this time, you begin to rediscover parts of yourself that might have been neglected or forgotten. Perhaps it's a hobby you loved but never found time for, a dream you put on hold, or even a side of your personality that got buried beneath the roles you play for others. Disappearing allows you to revisit those aspects of yourself with fresh eyes. It's like finding an old photograph of a version of you that feels both distant and familiar, and realizing that part of you still exists, waiting to be embraced. This reconnection also extends to your thoughts and feelings. Often in the hustle of daily life, we suppress emotions or ignore gut instincts simply to keep going. But in the quiet of solitude, those emotions resurface, offering insight into what's been weighing you down or lifting you up. You may find yourself confronting uncomfortable truths, but this honesty is crucial. It's through these moments that you begin to understand what you truly want, what makes you happy, and what no longer serves you. Spending time with yourself also strengthens your relationship with self-reliance and confidence. When you're not seeking validation or approval from others, you learn to trust your own judgment and instincts. You realize that your worth isn't determined by how others perceive you, but by how you perceive yourself. This self-trust becomes a powerful foundation, allowing you to navigate life with a greater sense of purpose and authenticity. Moreover, disappearing offers the gift of time, a resource we often take for granted. Without the constant demands of social interactions, you have the freedom to reflect, plan, and dream. You can assess whether your current path aligns with your values and aspirations. You might find clarity about what you need to change, whether it's setting boundaries, pursuing a new direction, or simply letting go of what's no longer fulfilling. In reconnecting with yourself, you also cultivate a deeper sense of peace. When you're no longer influenced by external noise, you can focus on what truly matters. This peace isn't about avoiding challenges or hardships, it's about developing the inner strength to face them with clarity and resilience. It's a sense of grounding that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. Ultimately, disappearing is less about the act of stepping away and more about what you gain in the process. It's a journey back to yourself, a chance to remember your own voice amidst the cacophony of the world. And when you return to the rhythm of life, you do so with a renewed sense of purpose, carrying the strength and wisdom you found within. When you choose to disappear, you create space to observe the world from a fresh perspective. Being constantly immersed in the dynamics of everyday life, social obligations, workplace pressures, and societal expectations can blur your vision and entangle your priorities. But stepping back allows you to detach, not just physically but mentally, and in this detachment lies the gift of clarity. As you remove yourself from the constant interactions and noise, you begin to notice things you might have missed before. You see patterns in your relationships, your habits, and your environment that weren't as obvious when you were caught up in the momentum. You start to discern which connections truly nourish you and which ones drain you. Maybe you realize that certain people demand your energy without offering anything meaningful in return, or that some routines you follow are more about pleasing others than fulfilling yourself. This newfound awareness empowers you to make better choices. Disappearing also grants you the opportunity to evaluate what truly matters. In the hustle of life, it's easy to lose sight of your core values and priorities. Time away gives you a vantage point to reflect on what aligns with your principles and what doesn't. Perhaps you've been chasing goals that aren't even yours, shaped by the expectations of family, friends, or society. When you step back, you can start asking the critical questions: what do I genuinely want? What brings me joy? What's worth my time and effort? From this vantage point, you can also assess the energy you give to others. Often we expend so much emotional bandwidth worrying about how others perceive us, trying to meet their expectations or striving to maintain relationships that may no longer be healthy. Disappearing helps you realize the importance of redirecting that energy toward yourself. It's a form of self-preservation and self-respect, a way of acknowledging that your time and emotional resources are valuable and shouldn't be spent recklessly. Moreover, the act of observing from a distance can lead to profound insights about life's dynamics. You see how people move through the world, how relationships evolve, and how your absence might even influence others. Well, this isn't about testing people or seeking validation, but understanding the role you play in their lives and vice versa. Sometimes the clarity gained from watching from afar reveals truths you wouldn't have seen up close about loyalty, love, and authenticity. This process isn't about judgment or bitterness, it's about understanding. By stepping away, you allow yourself the freedom to view life without the distortions of constant involvement. And when you eventually re-engage, you do so with a clearer sense of purpose, better boundaries, and an ability to prioritize what truly matters. In this space of observation, you become a student of life again, noticing its subtleties, marveling at its lessons, and finding wisdom in its complexities. It's this clarity that becomes your guiding light, illuminating your path forward and strengthening your resolve. And through it all, you come back to yourself more grounded, more intentional, and more aligned. Re-emerging after a period of deliberate disappearance is like stepping into a world you once knew, but with a transformed perspective. The act of retreating and isolating yourself has changed you, not in obvious, superficial ways, but in profound shifts in your thinking, your priorities, and your understanding of the world around you. When you return, you do so with a renewed sense of self, a deeper connection to your inner voice, and an unshakable clarity about who you are and what you stand for. The time spent away gives you the ability to recalibrate your emotional compass. Before disappearing, you may have been swept up in the noise of daily life, reacting to situations. catering to others' expectations, and living in a constant state of giving. But retreating into yourself creates a space for replenishment. You've had time to nurture your mental and emotional well-being, to silence the noise, and to allow your true desires and needs to rise to the surface. This inner work empowers you to show up in life more authentically, not as someone molded by external pressures, but as the truest version of yourself. Reemergence is not about picking up where you left off, it's about stepping into a new chapter, armed with the lessons learned from your time away. The relationships you choose to nurture or let go of, the paths you decide to follow, and the boundaries you now set are all influenced by the clarity you've gained. You're no longer willing to entertain situations or dynamics that drain you or compromise your peace. Instead, you move forward with purpose and intentionality, choosing only what aligns with your values and serves your growth. When you re-enter your social circles or professional spaces, people notice the change. They might not be able to articulate it, but they sense the shift in your energy. There's a quiet confidence about you, a sense of groundedness that wasn't there before. This transformation isn't about proving anything to anyone, but about living in alignment with your own truth. You're no longer seeking validation or approval because you've already given it to yourself during your time of reflection. The impact of this transformation extends beyond yourself. Your clarity and authenticity inspire those around you. People are drawn to your strength and calm presence, not because you're trying to lead or influence them, but because you've become a beacon of what it means to live intentionally. Your ability to prioritize your well-being, to focus on what truly matters, and to let go of what doesn't resonate sets an example for others who may be struggling with similar challenges. This new chapter of your life is characterized by peace, purpose, and empowerment. You've learned that disappearing isn't an escape, it's a powerful tool for self-discovery and growth. And as you step back into the world, you do so with quiet assurance that you're no longer just surviving, you're thriving. And every step forward is rooted in the wisdom gained from looking inward.